To support this podcast, check out our friends at Slick Sleeve Syndicate. Please go buy a t-shirt, go buy a hat, something. That way we can stop using Nick's iPhone to record the podcast, and maybe we can even get a real camera.
Hell yeah. Facts. Thanks.
Buy some f***ing merch.
No.
Hey, that's a better rifle. Drop the gun! Oh, shit! I'm hit. I'm okay.
They asked me, like, oh, did you play poker? And I was like, I haven't played in like 20 years. It was like legit, I hadn't played since like 2005.
How much you win?
We was like $10 each, so like first 5 of us, what are that, $40?
Okay.
I ended up winning the whole thing. And they were like, this is fucking bullshit. Oh, you haven't played. And I was like, I legit haven't played this. And whatever.
I mean, the rules don't change.
They don't change.
I mean, the next time you play, you're going to lose.
Probably, yeah. Oh, sure, 100%.
That's the way it is.
100%.
I mean, unless you're a degenerate gambler like Mags.
Yeah.
It's only gambling if you lose.
I mean,
it's only gambling
it's
if
only
you
losses
lose.
are on the Raiders.
Yeah, that's true.
I lose out every day.
It's worth it, right?
Yeah.
It's for the love of the game, you know? Keeps it fresh.
Nice. All right, let me get started.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to Badges, Bullets, and Blunders. I'm the host, Travis Harless. Before we get started, if you'd like to support this podcast, please go check out our friends at Slick Sleeve Syndicate. It's just a t-shirt company. Today's guests are Lieutenant Santiago Baltazar and Detective Max Hernandez. Balti, why don't you start with telling us how long you've been an officer, what did you do before you became an officer, and what are some of the assignments that you've worked as an officer?
So prior to becoming an officer, I was over at temporary employee for the probation department. Left there and went to work at Target
Nice.
for 3 years before I became an officer back in 2005. And
I used to work at my favorite Tex-Mex place, too.
oh, I did work.
You're
there.
still on the wall, your picture.
I am still there. Yeah, I worked there for 3 years. I
Fun fact.
do know the cake recipe. So, but at the department, I've obviously worked patrol for a short time in the beginning, and then became a motor. Best job in the department, and then
You were one of the motor FTOs when I started, I remember.
yeah, we can come and go into a story about when I was his FTO. In traffic. Yeah, it's good. It's a good story.
Okay.
It's not that great.
But we'll get to that later. So after traffic, I went to the Police Activities League as the PAL officer, and then went to training. Got promoted. Left the PAL Center as a senior.
What is the PAL Center?
Police Activities League. So it's a after-school program for at-risk youth, and really any kid that wants to stay off the streets and or just need something to do when they get out of school. And
Any kid can go, right? But it's like targeted for like you said, at-risk youth.
yeah, it's in a ours is in a neighborhood where it's there's a lot of violence and
High crime area.
yeah, exactly, and they get anywhere a little over 100 people a day or kids a day, and they do jiu-jitsu, basketball, soccer. They got a big grant right now where they're doing a lot to the facility. Boxing is one of their biggest things. I know there's a couple of kids that were in a national tournament over the last weekend or so. Not sure what the results are on that. I'm on the board for the PAL Center here.
We even have a few PAL kids that became cops, too.
Yeah,
Cops.
there's quite a bit. Just recently, we had professional boxers who just graduated in this last group, and he was 12, I think, when I was started at the PAL Center. So
Wow.
I actually, it was good to see him, starting his career in boxing at the PAL Center, and he went to some of his pro fights, and then went to his graduation. Got to see him graduate. It was amazing.
Nice.
And
Makes you feel old.
yes. I mean, actually, the same or previous academy. I think there was another PAL kid who became an officer, and I mean, heck, she was just as young when she was at the PAL playing basketball, and now she's
And now we have a PAL officer who was a PAL kid, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
like a circle.
Yeah, exactly.
Circle of life.
But
Nice.
it's just amazing to see how even the kids that were there when I was there, and now seeing them as adults, and that they've grown, and they recognize me. I'm a lot older now and probably fatter, but it's good to still be recognized
And to
from
see
that.
them in a positive light.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The other than that, we had Edmund on once, and he was a school teacher before he went to the Army, and then we got the Army, he became a police officer, and he worked at one of the at-risk schools for like elementary, and he used to always run into, when later in life when he became a cop, it was like a good, I think he'd been out of the school system for 6-7 years, and then he was running into kids on the street that he used to teach in that like at-risk school programs that like, but not in a positive sort of fashion, but. Anyway, so you PAL Center, and then where'd you go from there?
Yeah, PAL Center got promoted to senior, went back to patrol, and got to train some new officers who were, I mean, some of them are SWAT team, defensive tactics. Then I went to the training division for a little bit and got promoted to detective. For detectives, I did burglary, financial at the time, and then digital forensics for a little over 3 years, and then got promoted to sergeant, went out to the streets again for a short time, and then went back to the PAL Center as the executive director, and then got promoted. I'm sorry, what did I do? So I got asked to go to the training division again as a sergeant, and then got promoted to lieutenant, and currently assigned to our training division as a training lieutenant.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then during that time, you also, we'll get into the union stuff here.
Yeah.
We'll let Max kind of do his intro, and then we'll dive into some of the union stuff. So, Max, how long you been an officer, and what did you do before you became a police officer, and what are some of the assignments you've worked?
So just before I joined back in '08, I did 4 years in the Marine Corps. Then upon exiting out, moving back to Bakersfield.
What'd you do in the Marine Corps?
Ammo tech.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
yeah. Redheaded stepchildren of the Marine Corps, you know, just get tossed around.
Yeah.
Did you guys make crayons too?
We ate them.
No.
Yeah, that was the difference.
I like the yellows.
I'm a green guy myself. So then I joined the police department in '08, did 11 years on patrol, which included some impact time, and then promoted to detective, and a year in burglary, a year in SVU, and 2.5 in homicide, with my current time in our organized retail. So
ORT.
Yeah.
That's the hot ticket. What's ORT?
It's organized retail, so it kind of came about with all the thefts, petty thefts, and not being, there's no consequences to it. So
California legalized crime.
yes, pretty much. And so you got a slap on the wrist for doing a lot of thefts, and there wasn't a process.
The threshold between petty theft and grand theft is it
$950.
$950. So if you walk into a store and you steal $949 worth of stuff,
Oh, you got it off easy. Yeah,
and hypothetically, if you do get caught, then the penalty is a
ticket
citation,
Yeah, and you get to go out and do it again.
and then you go do it again.
Yeah. So what the new
So that created lots of shoplifting.
Yes, and so there was no consequences. So when people would do it, they would just go steal from one store, then go steal from another. And even though that they both equated to above $950, you only do per offense. So with the new Prop 36, it changed all that. So now you're able to aggregate all the cases together. And so if they did a multitude of thefts, you can add them up to a felony charge. So, and now it has a little bit more of a sting to them. So
Yeah, putting a dent in the retail theft.
yes. So
Nice. Cool. And then, so aside from your guys' work as police officers, you both are pretty tightly involved in the police officers union. So why don't you talk about that? I guess, Balti, you can go first. What is your involvement in?
Yeah, so I was the president. I was a board member for a year, and then became the president for 5 years, and then
The Bakersfield Police Officer Association.
Yeah, Bakersfield Police Officers Association, and I mean it was a great time during that time. I did want to promote because I was a sergeant at the time, or when I ended, I wanted to promote. So there was promoting during that time period where if I had to promote, I would have had, or got to promote during that testing process, I would have had to have come off the board anyways, because we command staff, lieutenants and above, they're only associate members, so they can't hold a position on the board. And, the association is not a bargaining group for them. So at that point, Max was the vice president, and to benefit the association and help out as much as I can, I stepped off the board. Max got elected as the president, and then I was still a sergeant at the time, and told them that if you need anything, kind of help them with the process of everything. And now I'm just a lieutenant.
Yeah. Now you're a they.
Yeah. Now
You turned to a they them.
Yes,
A they
they,
them.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I mean, during that time, it was fun. I mean, though you learned a lot, and you definitely see a lot of things that you never thought you were going to be able to see, or that you were going to be involved in during that time period. And yeah, I mean, Max is doing a great job. The entire board right now is doing a good job, and it's good to see that the ball's still rolling after that.
How long have you been the president now, Max?
Going on 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, for those who don't know, I mean, what does a union do? What is a police officer association like? What do they do?
So it represents officers in a multitude of things, or many things, facets of the job. So it's work conditions. You're ensuring that the processes are done that are fair and safe to the officers, and not overstepping boundaries in that aspect. You do contract negotiations. You also represent them in administrative investigations, as well as assist them in criminal investigations. So, so it combines a lot of work into one thing. So there's really not a specific area of expertise. It you got to spread yourself in order to get some experience.
Yeah, and another big thing about it is like just trying to build camaraderie between all the members. I mean, there's a lot of different, people within the association that not everybody wants to do the same thing. So it's definitely trying to find a multitude of different events that everybody will like to do. But I mean, as in everything, you're not going to be able to do every single thing that helps every individual person.
Yeah. So talk to us about, like you said, that represent officers or provide assistance for like internal investigations, criminal investigations. Go into that a little bit. What does the union do for? Well, I guess I'll make the distinction. So criminal investigation is, if you're being investigated for violating criminal law, which that's anything in the criminal code. And then an internal investigation is if you're being as an officer being investigated for a violation of department policy. And a lot of times those kind of overlap, because if you broke the law or believed to have possibly broken the law, then there's a good chance that there's a policy that kind of overlaps with that law as well.
Yes.
So there's two subsequent investigations happening at the same time usually. So what does a union do for an officer for like a criminal investigation?
So hopefully the officer that gets asked to be involved in the investigation, obviously there's going to be some information sharing when it comes to what investigation they're doing, right? So we would like the officer, if they're being asked to go interview for a criminal investigation, to at least reach out to to us, the board, to get a better understanding of what's going on. That way we can advise them in the best way that we could. Typically, if you're taking a rep, which is the board member or any other officer, there's no protection in that. So whatever that officer, the subject officer, is being investigated for, there's no protection in it for the officer representing them. So that information can be extracted one way or another. So
if I'm being investigated criminally and I ask you to come with me as my rep, that means that you can then be asked later on about any private conversations that we had?
Yes.
But that's just you acting as a representative, but not as what's the difference between that and like an attorney?
So there's a attorney-client privilege. And so what I was going to say earlier was, if you're taking an officer into a criminal investigation with you, well, that's already wrong. You should have an attorney.
Yeah.
So that's a major difference between the two. So at administrative, yes, we'll be more than willing to go through, sit down, go win it with you. But for the most part, you're going to be with an attorney if you ask us, what should we do?
Yeah, just, one of the biggest things is a lot of times you may get called in and don't know it's a criminal investigation. So when you're asking for a rep and you're denied a rep, well, you can be denied a rep but sometimes officers are confusing a rep as an attorney. whereas you need to say I want an attorney
Yeah.
and not a rep. So because when you're asking for a rep would be
I'm curious how
something-
they mistake the two. I guess I've done dumb things in my life, so but if you're being called in for a criminal investigation, maybe it isn't. But I would imagine it's pretty clear that they're investigating criminal charges.
Yes, a lot of times the officer just wants to do the right thing. So
Yeah.
they're not really asking the important questions like, what is this pertaining to?
Yeah.
Am I being looked at as a suspect in an actual criminal investigation?
Yeah.
Unless you've been around for a while, you know who actually works in that division.
Yeah, that's why I guess maybe it's just I've been around. So I know which building I'm going to. I can tell what type of investigation
Yeah,
it is. If I'm
exactly.
going to the investigations building where all the detectives work that do criminal cases, then I have an inkling that that's probably a criminal case. And if I'm going to the internal affairs building where all the internal affairs investigators work, then I would think, that's probably an IA case.
Right.
However, you'll be surprised
Yeah.
how many people, just ask for a rep only, and then instead of an attorney.
So what are, I kind of glazed over it, but what are some like common criminal, I guess maybe not common, but criminal cases that an officer gets investigated for? So like all officer-involved shootings are technically criminal cases.
You're correct.
Yeah, so talk about that a little bit.
So while on duty, right, and you're doing your job as you're supposed to, and you get involved in an officer-involved shooting, that is technically, it is a homicide. So it will be investigated as such.
Yeah.
Just because you did it in the course of your duties doesn't alleviate the investigation portion of it, right? So in that, you're going to take an attorney. Like that's part of our job. We're going to reach out, and we've done a good job at, if you're involved, you have so many things going on that the last thing you're thinking about is, probably who should I use or what should I get, right? Because they believe they did the right thing. So for us, we reach out to the officers and like, are you okay? How are you feeling? You need anything to eat? Are you, is there something I can help you with on the wellness side first? And then we can dive into, okay, this is what's going on. This is what I've been told. So obviously we all know that we're there for a certain reason, but we can then go into the legal course of it, of what's going to happen next.
How does the notification occur? I'm just curious. This is process thing. So we have like people that are on call for various reasons. And when a critical incident occurs that's specifically an officer-involved shooting, there's all sorts of notifications that go out for like the people from the investigation side, people from the internal affairs side that get notified. They come out to the scene, the briefing, and they do their investigation. Is there like an on-call person from the union specifically for critical incidents?
Yes, it's pretty much me, unless it's handed out because we've all worked together, right? And he had
So then, if there's a shooting, then the watch commander will call you.
Yes,
you'll be on the list of phone calls that they've got to make if there's an officer-involved shooting.
So yes and no. There's not like a set way of doing it. We just have built relationships. So like, he would always get a call from the OIC or somebody above. For me, like a lot of the sergeants that respond to that know that, hey, they're going to need somebody. So they're really great at reaching out and be like, hey, by the way, this just went out.
So, like whoever thinks of it first, like, okay, maybe someone notify the union because they have to be notified and it gets done by someone.
Yeah, everybody's been pretty good about it, like really good.
Yeah, because I mean, and the board members, former board members who are on shifts where something occurs, they'll also be shooting out a text or a call just that this had occurred, and then we just kind of get out there and make sure that the officer first off has LDF because you're not required to be part of the association, or make sure that they have LDF to go and then still support their legal side and make sure we get contact with all involved officers with an attorney and then so we can have that done prior to the investigation because obviously we all know that the investigation it's nonstop going. So we make sure that officers are talked to and the process is smooth through the whole investigation. So
yeah, like the union handles like the in-betweens from the officers involved in any critical instance, whether it's a shooting or just like a in-custody death.
Yeah, your critical incidents are handled pretty much the same way.
Yeah. what happens to an officer if they're not a part of the association and therefore
Yeah, I was
they
gonna ask
don't
that. You were
they
talking about
don't
the
pay
LDF.
into their legal defense fund?
Yeah.
So, I think I'm assuming 100% is currently.
We're at
part.
100 right now.
Okay.
So everybody, I mean, even like me, I'm associate member. I have LDF, and I think in the entire department, there's probably only maybe 3 people
Oh, wow.
that don't have LDF with us, and they're through
Third party.
through their third party, which is
Okay.
that's primarily from command staff. So, but it's has it happened? Yes, it has happened to where they're just not provided an attorney, and
They have to- they have to buy their
unfortunately they have to go in there, and we can speak with them, just kind of be like, hey, just make sure you have all your ducks in a row, why you did it, give them more of just what to do, and make sure that to talk about what they need to talk about and how to explain things. Other than that, I mean, they just don't have an attorney during that time.
Or they don't have an LDF funded attorney, right? 'Cause they
Yeah,
can still,
I mean,
they
if they
can
have
still
their own, they can
retain their own.
They can retain their own. Yes, they just don't have it funded through the association.
It's gonna be out of
Through-
My
pocket.
cousin
Yeah.
Vinny.
Yeah.
better call
Yeah.
Saul type attorney.
So, I mean, and it's that happened very, quickly when it happened, and now they're part of it. So, I don't remember if we actually let it just had them get the attorney, because the attorney was already there.
Yeah.
I don't remember if we just
They worked out a deal.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So.
So you guys still took care of them.
It was-
They did.
The attorney did.
The attorney did.
Yeah. So
That was nice of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
That's pretty nice. All right, so an officer-involved shooting occurs. You guys come out to assist the officer with anything they need. You provide contact an attorney through the LDF, and then what does that look like? What's the process like now for the officer, and what is it that they're going to be expected to do, and what can they expect like from the agency? What can they expect from the union? That kind of stuff.
So when it happens that day, right, it's all with us. Like we'll coordinate communication. We'll make sure that they're in touch with the attorney that they choose, and make sure the lines of communication are open between the department and that attorney, and they know who the attorney is for any kind of contact information, because there is the body cam stuff, and there's other contacts that they got to do, and coordinating interview times, because a lot of the times it won't happen that night. Though the officer will go home who's involved and get some rest until they're clear of the mind and have rest to be able to recall the incident. So the department has done a good job as far as allowing that to happen, because years ago it was that night you had 12-hour shift or whatever it was, and you were given that interview that night.
Yeah.
It's not the case anymore. So it's really turned around.
Do you know what the reason they did that and the reason that it's changed? Do you have?
I believe the research has said after an officer has been involved in a critical
Like
incident,
forced
it
science
does
stuff?
take it does take a couple of days for the mind to finally start recalling the things that
Yeah.
that had happened.
Well, I think of it from an investigative standpoint is that like you're going to get better information if you let them sleep on it for a day or 2 or 3,
Yeah.
and then come back and then talk about it. Then as opposed to like you just asking to someone who's been through something traumatic right then and there to explain it, like it's they're not going to be able to recall as well.
Right.
So it's a benefit to not just to the officer, I guess, but to the agency, to the department that's investigating this incident.
Yeah, and not even that. I remember a few times I was on the board back in 2012, 11. We had some incidents where a rep went in, and I know we talked about not going in without an attorney, and at that time that's what we were doing. Mostly because all of our attorneys are from elsewhere. They're from LA. They're at least 2 hours away, and so if the attorney couldn't make it out at that time, back when they were doing the interviews that day,
Yeah.
they weren't getting. I mean, it wasn't proper in my eyes, in my opinion, that the legal standpoint, they weren't protected as at that time frame. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now with that time frame, attorneys can get a proper advance notice of when we're going to set this up, a scheduled time, and everybody knows what's happening. So that part is good now.
That makes sense. Yeah. So give more time for their schedules.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, and witness, they're still talking. I mean, heck, sometimes they're talking to 20 people, and obviously they try to get the witness officers through first, and it could be hours later, and then all of a sudden you have a officer involved that's involved. It's now an additional 2-3 hours past all the witness officers because they're not the first person that they interview. So it's another reason why they let them go, because the attorney's got to go through every witness officer that's involved and look at body cam, look at, interview them.
To be better prepared.
To be, exactly. And so witness officers are usually interviewed right away. But I mean, there has been times where witness officers are come back later too, just because it's the end of the shift.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of non-officers that are being interviewed where it's going to extend it even further. So, I mean, but again, the department, like Max had said, the department's real good on, understanding that now, and people tired and it only makes them better for when they come back and interview too.
Yeah, you get better statements from people who aren't, right after they dealt with a traumatizing event.
Yeah.
What as a witness officer, I've never really thought about this. I've been a witness officer and had to come in, and I've never really thought one way or the other. But do they get the same privileges for or protections, or I guess there's no protection needed if you're a witness only? But is there a recommendation as far as bringing an attorney? Is that even something that is thought of, or a representative, or just if they're a witness officer only, then they're just going to go in there and provide a statement?
Yeah, I mean, they can have an attorney, because really at any point, especially nowadays, is a witness officer with failure to intervene, and their
you can go from witness to suspect real quick.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very easy to justify having a witness officer having an attorney.
Same thing with an internal case. You can go from witness to subject pretty quick also.
Yeah, and I mean, if the there are some things that need to occur because of POBAR that if they get that switch,
look at the switch. You have to stop. You have to let them know, notify them that they're now a subject officer, and then they have the opportunity to then get representation. So there's that kind of break, I guess.
Exactly.
I don't know if that worked in a criminal investigation, if there's that similar kind of protection. But
well, I mean, in criminal part though, you go into it.
Yeah, I mean, you can just run away with diarrhea at the mouth and have no idea you've crossed that line.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't go back after that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the same, as you say, diarrhea of the mouth can also occur in the middle of internal investigation where I mean, there's plenty of times where I'm just something said and just answer the question, and then you keep on going, and you're just like,
you got to pinch them. You got to be within arm's distance.
Like, what? And because I'm very emotional when I'm interviewing, or there's a rep, and when it's just like, why are you talking about that?
So when a scenario like that, like as a rep, like what? Well, what? Yeah, kind of go into what is a rep like in an IA case? Like, what are you doing, and what does that process look like?
So when you're a rep, so if I'm contacted to be a rep for an IA, the first thing I want to make sure is that, have you, as the subject officer or even witness officer, have you read the report? Have you reviewed your body cam?
Body cam is a big one.
I mean, making sure that the subject officer or witness officer has done that. Then, obviously, as a rep, I need to go through those things too, and see if there's anything from their statement and what's in the report, or sometimes officers will describe something on how they feel that's the way it is, but you're like, are you sure that's what you mean? And they talk about what they're saying. I was like, yeah, you're saying it completely wrong. Just helping them out and getting them on track of what they are saying. They're saying one thing, but they're trying to mean something else. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, especially with younger officers, because most of the time it's their first one. Yeah. So they're scared, or they're very extremely nervous. And because, people may have that misconception that if I go in there, I'm going to get fired right then and there.
Yeah.
No, there's a bunch of things that need to happen before that happens, but
Yeah.
we want to make sure that they are prepared.
It's going to take a while before we fire you. Okay.
Yeah. That they understand truly what they're saying.
Yeah.
And that they go in there to provide a detailed statement. That I always tell everybody that I rep, go in there and provide as much detail about what the issue, to where the internal affairs investigators don't have to ask questions. I mean, there's always going to be some questions, some clarifying questions, but if you can provide such a good detailed account of what happened, and the internal affairs investigators only have to ask maybe one or two questions, I mean, that's great. When you're there and there's 100 questions, it's just like, my God, this is going to be long.
When I was an IA investigator, I don't think I ever had anyone do that. I think back as an officer, I got called in. I was under investigation on a case, and I got called in for an interview, because sometimes you will provide a written statement and a memorandum and provide that to the investigator, and that'll be your statement. And then if they need additional information, they'll either issue a new memo to write follow-up memorandum or come in for an interview. And I got called in on this case as being investigated, and it was for an interview, but I wanted to have all of my thoughts together, so I just wrote it. That's the way I write a lot, and it helped me to kind of get my thoughts together to explain the incident. And I wrote like this 3-page long memo, and I brought it with me, and I was like, I have this memo, and they're like, well, I mean, if you want to just read it, you can. Like, I was just going to give it to them, and so we started the interview, and I just read this 3-page memo into the record, and then they got done. They're like, all right, well, we'll take a break, and they like went out. They came back a minute later. They asked me like one question, and then we were done.
Yep.
And I was like, it kind of messed up their game plan, because he's got his list of all the questions he's going to ask me, and I just provided like I said, a 3-page long statement I just read into the record, and they're like, oh yeah, well, I guess I don't really have much else for you.
Oh, I mean, and there's plenty of times when you go and have your meetings and with the officers, and they're squared away. You're like, okay, we're going to be good. And, you go in there, this shouldn't take, more than 15, 20 minutes. And then they give their statement, and it's a one-liner. And it's just like, wait a minute, what happened to everything thing that you were saying before?
They turn into Ricky Bobby. They're just like, sitting there, like, I don't know what to do with my hands. They start asking questions like, car ran good.
Car ran good.
And then, the investigators, all of a sudden after that, they're just like starting to write all their questions down that they need to ask now, because, sometimes they have the belief that they're already going to be, won't have to ask a bunch of questions, but then we'll get to take a break.
Take a break. We'll talk about breaks.
Yeah.
Tell us about, do you guys do breaks in the middle of interviews? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there's been interviews to where it is people are getting emotional during the interview, so you have to, just ask if you could take a break.
Yeah.
And then you have some interviews that have gone hours.
Yeah.
And you just need to take a break, because it's just either you got to go to the bathroom, you got to get some water, you got to, it's just the officer's talking too much. But I mean, you can ask
sometimes
for a
when
break.
they're doing the Ricky Bobby, they don't do their hands. You need to kind of pause and snap them out of it, and then they can come back in and do better. And I can tell you from the other side, because I've been on the other side of the table as an investigator, it's like, I appreciate that when they're like struggling, and you're like, just get the words out, man. Like, and if the rep steps in, it's like, can we have a break? Like, yes, that's a great idea. Like, you take a break, and then you come back like, okay, let's do this again. Yeah, because for being on the other side, you're just trying to get the information, and like people get so nervous, like, because there's the potential for discipline, up to and including termination or whatever, but the purpose of the investigator is to just get the information to complete the investigation. And one of the things that's different about being an IA investigator than from being a detective, like a criminal investigator, is and this is weird for me when I showed up, is you don't make a determination. Like when you're a criminal investigator, either an officer or detective, you make a determination at the end of that investigation as to whether or not this met the threshold for probable cause to arrest. And then you make an arrest, or you submit to the DA's office, you do whatever. But when you read a criminal report, there's always at the end of it that's always like, so-and-so was arrested for this crime and transported and booked, or, this was submitted to the DA's office, requesting these charges, or there's some conclusion that you draw on there. As an IA investigator, you don't draw any conclusion, and the reports are weird. Like, I'm sure you've read them; they just end.
Yeah,
You're reading it, and then the report just ends.
Yeah,
and like, what do I do with that? It's because then it gets submitted and it gets sent over, and it runs up through the chain, and the command staff are the ones that make the determination. They make the conclusion.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I guess as an IA investigator, like all I'm trying to do is get the facts so I can complete this thing and write a complete telling of the story. I'm not deciding one way or the other. When I'm asking questions, I'm just asking the questions that I know that those people are going to want me to ask.
Yes.
And if I don't ask these questions, it's going to get kicked back to me, and I'm going to have to call you back in here, and we're going to do this over again, and then I'm going to ask you the questions anyways.
Yep.
So, like, I'm just trying, like, I'm hoping that you can get through, as the officer, you can get through this so that I can get sent over and it doesn't get sent back to me, and we can kind of be done with it. And
one time shot.
And then when you come back, when you're called back, you can actually get everything before that
Second
interview before your second interview.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now you have a who knows how long transcription or video or recording of your whole thing, and now you've got to go through it, because when they come back and interview, you don't want to say something that you didn't say, or conflicting information from the first interview. So
did you like your time in IA?
Did I like it? I don't know if like is a good categorization. It was
it palatable?
It wasn't terrible, but coming from where I came from and where I ended up afterwards, like that was kind of a lower spot, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was informational. It was like you learned a lot, and got to have experiences that I would have never volunteered for, or I wouldn't have had otherwise, and that were beneficial. Get to see the inner workings.
Right.
Get to see how the minds work. Get to see how the cases work. Get to see how people act when you're asking them questions. I had a couple of cases where I'm sat across from dudes I've known for like almost 20 years, and get to see how they respond. Like,
That's
weird.
Yeah.
I like it. So yeah, it was. I don't know if I'd use the word like, but it was valuable.
That's good.
Yeah, and everybody from IA walks around, and people look at them like they have the plague.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we did that. That was like, I think, our first clip for the show. I was telling Brandon about it, about working in IA, because I was still in IA at the time, and I said that being in IA is like the same joke you get as an officer. Like when you walk into a public place.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
You go into like a store or like a restaurant, everyone like looks at you, and then they grab their friend next to them, like, it was him, and it wasn't me. Well, then you when you get into IA, when you walk into the police building, it's the same joke is happening, but it's the police officers making the joke to you.
Yeah.
So like I walk in and like you grab him and you're like, oh, it was him.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. And like,
And then you're walking around with 10 folders. Oh no. It's you.
Oh yeah.
No, I used to actually carry I would carry an empty manila envelope.
Yeah.
Like if I had to go over there for something else that wasn't related to a case, and I walk into the building, and I always just have the envelope in my hand, because like people see you and then they avoid you.
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't want to talk to anybody, you carry the manila envelope.
Yeah.
Because I think you got an IA memo. Like, no, this is empty. It's just a prop.
Yeah.
So that
It's
you won't
like a
me.
hall pass.
Yeah.
No one bothers
No
you with
one
the hall
bother
pass.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that.
One thing I wanted to bring up, because you're LT, you're talking about guys who are just nervous in their interviews and stuff, and I think a lot of the newer guys are nervous whenever they get into their first IA, and I think a big reason of it is because they see IA as like this thing like happens that if you only do something wrong.
Yeah.
But then I like to remind people is that any complaint that gets made, that has to be investigated. Where I want to say years past that the IA investigator could actually get that complaint and do their own investigation and without ever notifying the officer.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's cases like
yeah,
that, especially in this day and age with body worn camera. It is possible where you can review the information available,
Yeah.
and you can look at the complaint and say that this person is obviously just made up this whole story.
Yes.
because none of what they're saying jives with the body worn camera,
Yeah.
and you can technically not even bother interviewing the officer. I've had that happen. I've had that happen to me on like where I was being investigated on a case I never even got called in for. I just got a findings letter,
Yeah.
like saying unfounded. So it is possible. But when I was there as an investigator, I did that, I think maybe just one time. But most of the time I would call them in and at least, ask them, did you do this insane thing that this insane person accused you of? And then I already know the answer. You get the body worn camera or whatever. But
Well, the reason I bring that up is because I thought that the requirement had changed from like every IA complaint is going to be investigated with the officer and not without them. Because I know before, like years, I don't know how far back officers, or rather at the time, I think it was detectives that were in IA. This is before they were all sergeants. That those detectives could, investigate it on their own without ever calling in the officer and then give them findings letter, be like, hey, this didn't occur, or
Well, the good thing is their personnel complaint policy
Yeah.
will be coming out. Not sure when, if it's already approved or whatnot. So there will be a lot of,
Requirements.
online training we're going to have to do. That's
Yeah.
going to, go through a lot of that stuff. So,
Yeah. I still don't think that everyone is truly aware of how it works.
yeah. So
And I think that's where the fear comes from. 'Cause they don't know.
Exactly. And you know what? And you'll be surprised how many times people will go into, you, Travis, would know is how many people go into IA investigations without a rep, period. Even without consulting with the rep. And, if you don't want to go in with one, that's fine. It's up to the individual officer. But I do find it beneficial to, even if it's a memo,
Yeah.
to make sure that it gets reviewed by a rep or even an attorney, because if you're a subject officer and you have a memo, and you can ask, if you want, get with the one of the board members or Max or whoever, and ask if they can have instead of a board member or a rep going through it, I'd like to have an attorney review it. And that is perfectly fine too.
Yeah.
Just making sure that you answered all the questions correctly, that the memo is written to a standard that, you don't want them to come back and ask more questions or more clarifying questions.
Yeah.
I feel that, I know both of you, so I feel like I am very approachable.
Yeah.
However, as a sergeant, when I was the president, it seemed like nobody ever really wanted to talk to me because of the fact that I was a supervisor. So if they want to tell me that what's going on, it's kind of that, okay, well, I can't tell you what happened because you're a supervisor.
Yeah.
And am I going to get in trouble for telling you the situation? It took a while before a lot of people, especially in our special enforcement unit, to come and ask me, because a lot of them would go in there and go by themselves.
Yeah.
So once you just got to earn that. As long as you call me and let me know at the time, hey, I need a rep for an IA case, or I needed to ask you something at the time regarding association stuff. I'm able to switch the hat off, but I need to know before you start
what kind
getting
of
into the
conversation? Are we having
conversation.
a supervisor conversation
Yeah.
or a rep
they had to vet
conversation?
you out first.
Yeah. So and then once that happened, I think a lot of the special enforcement unit IE cases were they're starting to drop. Explaining that a lot of the stuff they do, obviously they're running and gunning type of unit, but it's just. Yeah, you can do that still, but make sure you come back and finish the things that need to be done before you're going to get complained on. And a lot of IA, and I'm assuming you believe the same thing. A lot of IA complaints that get sustained are avoidable.
Yeah.
Body cam stuff, language, yes.
Yeah, because if you can't articulate and justify your actions, then it comes across as like you didn't really need to do this. However, if you can articulate the actions taken for a particular complaint, like then it will be not sustained.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even not necessarily the articulation problem, but I used to. One of the reasons that they changed from detectives to sergeants to be investigators is they wanted to be able to have sort of a how do you put it, like a mentoring kind of relationship to where you can explain things to people like kind of after the fact. So you've got the experience as a field supervisor, and then now you can talk to these people, not necessarily during the course of the interview, but like you can have that presence to explain like, hey, these are some patterns that we're seeing, and if you adjust here, then you might avoid
For education.
Yeah, for education purposes. And I've had that happen where I had a case and it ended up getting sustained, and I went back and I saw what the officer did in this case, and then I went back and I looked at some other, I just pulled body cam video from other contexts they had, and I was like seeing some patterns, and so I pulled this guy aside. I'm like, hey man, like what's the deal? Like, why are we having our context this way? Like, where did you learn this? And we kind of got to the bottom of it and discussed it and like kind of sorted it out. And then moving forward, like, we weren't having those specific types of issues anymore.
Yeah.
And whereas before, if your job is just strictly just to investigate this, submit the report, and then let them decide, like you're not going to pick up on those patterns. And you're also not really in a position, if you're just an investigator, just a detective, to like pull someone aside and be like, hey, like as a supervisor, this is something I'm noticing, and this is something that I think you should an adjustment that you should make.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
Kind of
But I think in this job, like we always, we're held to a certain standard, and even when we don't want to be wrong, even with our peers, So when we make a mistake, it's kind of hard for us to even have those conversations with somebody else. So really, just you don't know who's going to be involved or what the other person's going to say. So kind of giving us a call, that's all it takes is for us to be able to get a chance of an overview of everything and see if there's going to be conflicting stuff or if there's going to be, problems along the way that we can better advise what the situation is and how can it go bad or, how can we help? So.
Now, on a case that involves multiple officers, how did you guys work that out with? Do you have one rep who's going to represent all officers, or do you have them?
So it kind of goes
divide
with,
it up?
Yeah, it will kind of default to who the subject officer is, and we'll go from
Well, say
there.
if it's like partners that are both being complained on, or maybe there was multiple officers on like 3, 4, 5 officers on a call, and the person complained on all of the involved officers.
Yeah.
And so you got like a group of them. You don't just have one involved, but multiple involved officers.
Yeah, it really depends on the officers, because there's some officers who don't want a certain person as a rep.
Yeah,
They've gone through the same person over and over and over. Now, there are times where if one, especially the subject officer, if the subject officer wants specifically one rep, but the additional officers, additional subject officers or witness officers want a different rep, but you try to get everybody to have the same rep, so you're not pulling people off the streets. Because like earlier we were talking, I don't know if this was before or not, but we're volunteers for this position. So if we can get one person there who's on duty that's can rep everybody, and then it's preferable that happens. But if people want separate reps, or if somebody wants an attorney, or the subject wants an attorney, and somebody doesn't want to go in with a rep, they don't have to. If they want a rep instead of an attorney, they can do that also. There are situations where you do have conflicts, so you wouldn't want, especially as a officer rep, to if they're he said, she said, at each other, you don't want to be you wouldn't want to be the rep for that.
You're talking about like an internal case.
Yeah, an internal case. So
we didn't go over that. The difference between the two main types of IA cases are citizen complaints. So that's when somebody from the public complains on an officer, and then an internal investigation where either an officer is complaining on another officer or somebody within the agency recognized a potential policy violation and initiated an investigation.
Yeah, and also in regards to just a citizen complaint on a subject officer, but the witness officer is going to be saying conflicting things of what the subject officer is saying. Where not, it's not internally generated, but it's just off of the same citizen complaint. And at those situations, yes, you'll initially will talk to the officers, all the officers involved, and you'd ask, hey, is there going to be anything that you're going to say against what you believe that they're probably going to say, and if there is a conflict, then at that point you do want to get a separate rep. And however, when it's an attorney, that is the rep between two officers that could be a conflict. There are conflicts where you can just you got to make sure you document it between the attorneys that this person's a conflict, and are you okay with I'm repping this person, but I'm also repping you? Can that happen? Absolutely, that can happen. But that's obviously an attorney situation, and we wouldn't. I wouldn't want to have be a conflict between two separate officers and try to do both of them. So you'd have to have somebody else rep that part. But yeah, there are internally generated. Yes, there are internally generated offenses where things somebody sees something happen, and whether it's supervisors, it could internally generate an IA, or officers can internally generate an IA and file a complaint. So even non-sworn can file a complaint on us. So
that would generate an internal. I wanted to go over POBAR. Explain to us what is POBAR and how does that apply for you guys?
So POBAR is a protection in specifically the state of California.
Yeah.
So it's the Bill of Rights of police officers, right? So police officer Bill of Rights, actually. But it affords protection when it comes to internal investigations. So you have the right to an attorney. You have privilege with an attorney. It's about providing statements, and it's a whole lot of things that that's the whole reason for having LDF, the Legal Defense Fund. And it's not just like we talked about a rep going in there when it's above our head, because we're dealing with, now you have SB2 issues, right? So not issues, but SB2, the Senate bill, when it comes to decertification of officers. So POBAR, it wraps up all into that just for protection of the officer and to ensure that the processes are protected and it's an even playing field, so to speak. So it's not just I got you kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not that way in every state, right? California has POBAR, but other states don't have that. So the relationship between the investigating agency and the officer gets a little more, I don't know how you'd characterize it, a little more dicey.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, you think you're going somewhere else and it's going to be great because you're just taking what you learned here into another, and it doesn't exist. Yeah. So that can be eye-opening.
Some departments are at will.
Yeah.
So, and states, not in California, but some states are at-will employees. So, you can get interviewed without having any of the rights that POBAR allows in California. As for the process, you have to be notified. You have to have, a certain
duty hours,
preferably if you can do it on duty, but if not, give them ample time. Make sure that there's only that who the investigators are, that there shouldn't be any other investigators it's just the process. As long as, it's to afford that the process is done the way POBAR says it's done, and that that the officer, the subject officer, witness officer has provided all those rights. So
yeah,
it even allows you to say that you can run for a school board position, and that you can be that while still on an officer.
Wow, didn't read that section.
It's got a lot of different things in there that you just
don't necessarily apply to an IA investigator. You're going to be worried about that. We didn't really talk about the distinction too between, or maybe just a little bit, between an internal investigation and a criminal investigation, and how that separates. And like a criminal, the way it was explained to me early on that helped make sense is that the worst thing that can happen to you at the end of a criminal investigation is that you go to prison. the worst thing that can happen to you at the end of an internal investigation is that you get fired.
Yeah.
so
Yes.
so our friend Paul used to say, he was an IA investigator as a detective, and he's like, don't be worried about me. He's like, the only thing that my case can do is get you fired. Like, those guys across the street, those are the ones you got to worry about.
Yeah,
They
yes.
send you to prison.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the most obvious distinction between the two. And then there's also where they overlap. So as an internal investigator, you can take anything that was used in the criminal case and you can use that in your investigation as an IA investigator, but it's not this, it doesn't go both ways. So the criminal investigators can't take anything from the IA side and use that for the criminal case.
Correct.
And so so that's where the lie, barter, admonition comes into play. So like when you come in for a criminal case, you have all the same constitutional, the Fifth Amendment protections where you don't have to provide a statement if you don't want to. You can just invoke and not provide any statement at all. And then it's between you and your attorney if that's the best strategy for your case or not. But then when you go into your internal case, say you invoke and you don't provide a criminal statement, well then now on the internal side we can compel you to provide a statement. And that's where the lie, barter, admonition comes in, which essentially says that you're an employee of this police department and as a condition of your employment, we're ordering you to tell us what happened here. And so if you refuse, then you're subject to discipline up to and including termination.
Yeah, because you're just being insubordinate on
Yes.
what you're failing to follow a direct order.
Yeah.
So where that is definitely
And that's also why that can't be used in the criminal side. Because you can invoke your right, your Fifth Amendment, and not provide a statement on the criminal side, and then you walk across the street to the Internal Affairs Division, and they say, okay, now we're ordering you to provide a statement, so now you're being compelled, and you're providing this statement under duress. You're providing the statement that you, and the criminal guys can't then take what you said to the IA investigators and use that in your criminal case because it's a compelled statement.
Right.
Yeah, and that's when you're working those two things, it's very if you're not saying something in the criminal investigation, and for a reason, and if it's going to get you in trouble in a criminal investigation, and you could potentially get in trouble or fired from a lot of times some people will just hey, I'm not going to provide the statement and go from there. And then whether they want to resign or, they'll give it to that and then provide a written statement for the criminal side.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a bunch of different nuances within what you should do within criminal and internal, but it's very complex and
that's why you should consult with your rep.
that is
and your
always
attorney.
right.
And an attorney.
Yes.
Yeah, just listen to your attorney, whatever they say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But our BPOA has 4 attorneys through
4 firms, yeah.
4 firms, that is through LDF. I mean, officers can pretty much pick whichever one that they want. If they don't like any of those attorneys and they want to choose somebody outside of that is on the legal defense fund panel, then they can pick one of those firms and just get the okay by the president, and they can go outside of that list of people too. I mean, it's always good to have somebody look over everything, just a second set of eyes, and it's not asking for help. It's just making sure that everything is done correctly. I mean, if you have a lot of officers who just know the name POBAR, or have heard the name POBAR, but don't really understand it, and just getting somebody who understands the POBAR and what needs the processes of everything like that, just to look and make sure everything is getting done. That's all you're doing. It's not, there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't, make you any less of an officer. It's just, these are rights that you are afforded, and you want to make sure that the department and the investigators are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
And I can tell you from the other side also, again, is that if I'm the investigator for an internal case, I like when they have a rep that, like, if it's a memo, I want them to look it over, because if I issue them a memorandum and I say, answer these questions in a written form, and then they submit it back to me, And you can tell when it definitely hasn't been looked at by a rep. And you're like, this is all jacked up. Like it didn't answer to question number 3.
Yes.
Half-ass answer for question 5. The format's all jacked up. Format matters. It's kind of annoying, but like if there's information that I'm asking for and it's not in there because you didn't put it in there, and then you didn't have somebody else with some experience look it over to kind of help you make sure that you got all the information in there. Well, that just creates more work for me because now I have to resubmit it, ask you additional questions, either call you in to interview you or send you another memo and have you write a new memo. And it's like, it's a lot better for everyone if like you get it right the first time.
Yeah.
A lot smoother sailing for all of us.
I mean, there's even in the internal affairs memo, it tells you how you're supposed to start the memo.
The instructions on that thing are so specific. But you wouldn't be surprised, but some people would be surprised at how much people mess that up, despite how specific it is. But all right, I wanted to talk, I guess, about you guys. One of the other aspects of what the association does is contract negotiations.
Yeah, I'll get anything contract negotiation. I can talk generalized of what like the process.
Yeah.
But
you can get specific or not specific. It doesn't matter. It's whatever you want to go with.
Okay. So we did have a large changeover. So I'll just bring it up to what it is that we have now, right? So we did have a large changeover of board members this past year. So we had 5 new ones come on that had never been a part of it. They just wanted to be a part of the process and to see what it's like to sit on the other side and be part of the solution rather than just see or say things that that we're not, I guess, we're not true to the association, and that comes from their own mouth. They're like, I just really wanted to see what I thought was wrong, and really I get a hands-on experience with it. So I thanked them all. I said, and most of them are PEPRA officers who are newer officers. Coming on. Describe
that. It's PEPRA and traditional.
So
or classic.
The classic is the retirement system. So the retirement system changed back in 2012 from classic, which was 3% at 50, and the city of Bakersfield then went to the ballots locally and changed it to a Measure D, which was a lower form of the retirement. Good, but it capped out 9% for the retirement contribution on the officer side. Then the state went to the ballot measure, and the citizens of California changed it to a 2.7 to 57, which was now a lower, and you work for farther, and there's not a ceiling on it. So officers are paying like 14.75 right now, 14%. Wow.
So almost 14%.
Yeah.
So in kind of more plain English terms, like 3% at 50, what that means is that when you turn 50, you're eligible to collect a retirement, and you get paid 3% for every year you worked up to the age of 50.
Yes.
And then when you say 2.7 at 57, that means that you're eligible for retirement now 7 years later at 57, and you get 2.7% for every year up to that 57 age 57. So it's less. It's the classic. They can retire with more money, and they can retire sooner, I guess is a plain English way of putting it. And then also their contributions are less. They're only paying, I think, 1%. It's a very minuscule amount compared to these guys and gals that are now paying 14% contribution to that. And you said, I don't know what that comes out to, like in dollar.
It's about $600 to $800, depending on the rank of the officer and time on.
As opposed to like per every 2 weeks, you're paying between $60 and $100, as opposed to the classic employees who are paying like less than $50. I think.
Yes, 1%.
Yeah, something like that. So that's a big difference between like what
it's an egregious difference, if you ask me.
What you will when you can retire. Retiring at age 50 is a lot sooner than retiring at age 57, and then you're going to be getting paid more in retirement, and then also your contributions while you're working. It's a huge, what was the word you used?
Egregious
difference. And I remember when it happened and thinking it was like, you're going to create a 2-tier system, and there's going to be some, I don't even know what to describe.
A third-tier system.
3-tier system.
Yeah. There's going to be a day of reckoning.
Yes, and that's how it.
Wait, what are the tiers now? The 3 tiers. So classic, PEPRA, and
Measure D.
Measure D. There's probably about maybe 15. Maybe there might be a little bit more.
Oh,
or less.
So they're in the middle.
They're in the middle. They're the Measure D. So it's how I explain it is always the city approved Measure D through a vote. So it was basically PEPRA before PEPRA.
It was pre-PEPRA.
Yeah, it was pre-PEPRA. So
Is that less than what pepper is?
They're 2.5 at 55.
Okay.
With the capped out 9%. So they don't pay more than 9.
They don't pay more, but they can retire 2 years sooner, but they get 0.2% less.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Yeah, it messed up.
But there's a huge difference between a classic and a pepper.
major difference.
Huge difference.
Yes.
I mean, just that 5% in what gets pulled for retirement makes a big difference also.
Yeah.
And so that went into effect, you said 2012 when pepper went into effect?
Yeah, that's when the Measure D had came on.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
think it was
we're
January 1st of 2013 was when it.
Yeah.
when it
So
went
we're now 12 and a half, almost 13 years from when that started. So the
Yes.
people that they came in after that are now at like supervisor, like sergeant level positions, some people
Yes.
that, so there's some people that are really well integrated and influential that are in that category. And then what are the numbers? Like how many approximately? So we got about 500 total officers. Is that right?
In the association's about 460. It
But that's not
fluctuates.
counting the command staff, right?
No, I think it does.
yeah.
Okay, so about
Yeah.
460, and then how many of approximately of those are classic versus?
We're out. The classics are outnumbered by the pepper.
Oh, by yeah.
By
It's
far.
definitely
Yeah.
it's gone to the scales have shifted,
Yes.
obviously, but like what is it like 70-30?
Oh, probably
Yeah, it's
70,
about that.
30.
Yeah,
30.
I haven't done the exact number, but it is considerably more
Yeah.
on pepper side.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it's less than 200. Less than 200 officers
that
are
are
classic.
of us that are left, classic guys that are left.
Yeah.
yeah.
And so what that does
Dying
to
breed.
Dying breed.
what that does to negotiations is now you got to, the discrepancies between the retirement tiers. It kind of puts, it throws a wrench into negotiations when you're trying to go across the board. But the pepper officers are not taking home that much, so it kind of doesn't feel equal. It kind of feels one-sided. So going into contract negotiations, when I was going back to the new board members, we all went to collective bargaining together, so we can understand the system and how it works and what other agencies are doing across the state, which was real eye-opening for everybody, even including myself. I mean, I was part of the negotiation team, but as far as going in and actually structuring it and doing everything hands-on myself, you learn a lot, and good or bad. I mean, you learn about the stuff that you thought was good, and it really doesn't end up that way, and what you think is bad, and you're like, oh, I kind of work with that, I guess. But ultimately, when it comes to contract negotiations, we can't strike. We have very little pull
Yeah, you
when it
can't
comes
strike.
to something like that. So
Yeah.
we're kind of at the mercy at what the city wants to give us, as any agency.
Yeah,
So-
it's not like the grocery store strike where they just shut down and you
Right,
can hire the store can hire some scabs to come in and work. Like
Yeah, crossing picket lines and getting fights, and
Yeah.
no, we can't do any of that. So you got to be really strategic and really outside the box thinking when it comes to ways of negotiating and being forward thinking and being able to win amongst your membership, because that's really what they put you in charge for.
And Measure D is 2% at 50.
oh wow,
Oh,
It's actually-
2%.
Yeah, it's 2% at 50.
that's a big difference between 3% and 50.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I explained it well enough. So 3% for every year. So say you start at age 25 and you retire at age 50, then you have 25 years and you get 3% for every year. So you make 75% of your salary in retirement if you're a 3 at 50 person. Whereas if you're the same person falling under PEPRA, you have to wait 7 more years to retire. And I don't have a calculator, but that would be it would be 32 years instead of 25 years at 2.7. I don't know if that comes up.
67.5%.
So then you'll work 7 extra years and you'll make 8% less, right?
And for PEPRA, so PEPRA employees actually top out on an amount. So it's raised since in the last couple of years. So I think it was like 145 that it would top out at. So no matter if you were if you're a PEPRA employee at a chief salary that's more than 145, it doesn't matter. At that point, it drops to 145 as your highest that you can max out. I think it's more now. I think it's like 165. That might have been within the last, when I was more involved in the association at the time, but it may be more now.
Yeah.
But because they realize that things are just more expensive, so I think they're raising those amounts.
Cost of living amounts.
So I mean, it gets to a point to where if you're a PEPRA employee and if it's you're a lieutenant or captain, and that's the top out spot, why move on to the next rank to make more? You'll make more while you're working, but when you retire, you'll be making what you were making as a captain or lieutenant, depending on what
depending on where they
you're
put the cap at. So then so contract negotiations, you said there's a team within the board.
Yes. So within the board, we have 3 that are selected that we go to the table, and we do go back with information and
When you go to the table, you're talking about representatives from the city, correct?
Yes. So we have scheduled meetings where we meet with the negotiating team from the city, our contract, our bargaining group, BPOA. We have our selected 3. So we go to the table, and with the help with some of the collective bargaining attorneys that we have, we tell them, like in this instance, we created a proposal that we felt that was fair and for all officers, and we provide it to the city, and the city has a chance to come back and counter. And so we're in the middle of that process right now. We're not done. We're still working our way through this whole process. None of it's ever easy. I mean, as far as I've been here, it's always a give and take, and sometimes it feels like more of a take than anything, but or a give, if you will. But no, it's a process that is trying. So you have to learn when to speak and when to take the information and think about it for a little bit before you come back on something.
And this is definitely at that, where when you're in the negotiations, it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
To be able to have relationships with the city manager, the HR, the city council, even having good relationships within the city or department management, because I mean, if we don't believe that the city is talking to our management about relationships, I mean that's what it's all about. And I mean, they're doing a great job of constantly keeping in touch with the management and obviously the city council and everything like that. I mean, it's definitely
if you just walk in there saying "F you" to everybody, then you're not going to probably get a lot done.
No, not at all. Despite what what the popular belief is, it doesn't work that way.
Despite what they say in the meetings.
I mean, it's definitely when you talk to other associations or other association leaders. I mean, this was my when I was there several years ago. I was at a conference, and other association presidents and board members were talking to me about, we don't have a good relationship with our chiefs and captains and this and that. And, so we were talking about a specific subject, and they're like, well, what do your chief would think about this? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me ask him. So I texted him, and he gave me a response, and they looked at me and was just like, like you guys
just text the chief?
You just call him up or text him or whatever. I was like, well, you guys don't have that kind of relationship. They're like, no. I was like, okay, sorry. Well, sorry, you guys don't talk to your bosses.
Probably makes it more difficult to work things out.
Yeah.
So when you guys go into these negotiations, we didn't really get specific. Obviously, one of the big thing that you're negotiating for is like salary. Like how much are we getting paid? But what are some of the other things that you guys are negotiating for?
So we can do non-monetary stuff. In the past, we've done an addition to hours to comp time, which the officers can bank more. You look for incentive pays, things like that. Really what the hot topic is, and that should be across the board, is you're looking for, because of the two-tiered system, you're always looking at ways of, CalPERS doesn't look at everything as a flat rate, right? So what used to be PERSable, which is compensable, is no longer for the newer officers. So you really got to take a fine-tooth comb, if you will, and go through the matrix and find out, if I'm fighting for one, is it just one, or is it or both going to be benefited by whatever we're asking for? And so that's really the process. And so,
what's a way you could benefit a pepper employee that wouldn't benefit a classic employee? So,
like uniform pay is PERSable for a classic. It's no longer PERSable for Pepra. So those little tidbits of money that you can see.
So when you're saying PERSable, you're saying it counts towards their retirement.
Their retirement.
So
pay.
like if you get a uniform, I don't even know what a uniform allowance looks
like. It's like $50 dollars.
$50
like
a
that,
paycheck or something, and then the classic employee can count that towards their salary that's part of what the percentage comes from.
Yes.
Whereas PEPRA does not count that.
No.
Okay. I mean, it benefits them in the short term that they're getting the money.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're getting paid the money, but they're not counting it towards the retirement.
Yeah. And so things that looking across each side is like education pay. That's across the board. Salary. That's across the board. There's certain things that we looked into that were on there, like patrol incentive, or there's a marksmanship incentive in PERS that if you shoot a certain thing that it's
Fitness
PERSable.
incentive.
Yeah, it's a
Fitness
pay, yeah.
incentive,
Fitness
yeah.
incentive is another one. So there's things in there that you can ask for. You can ask for certain workout times, wellness, like what are you going to get out of it? So you can ask, and all they can do is shoot it down. So really, you just
Get us
ask
a wellness
away.
center with some. What are those drinks called?
Monsters?
No,
Or-
the jarritos.
Jaritos.
They have them in there?
Yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah,
Mexican
yeah,
sauce.
yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
No way.
Yeah, he sent me a video the other day. It was like, oh, the
wellness
the
centers
wellness
is-
center's trying to keep us.
Okay.
Yeah. They're doing everything they can for morale.
What was that song
Oh, my
playing? It was
God.
some
For all the
kind of-
Hispanic
Did my face
officers.
light up though? Really?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, but then we get emails about we just leaving trash
No.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, to get those. I was joking. I was like, I get those. A couple of yard statues, some palm trees.
Hey,
Oh, yeah.
lions on the front.
Yeah, lines
Lions,
of-
yeah, that's what they
There's
said
some
too. Statue lions.
some wrought iron. Yeah,
You
just
have to.
got white tiles through that whole place.
I mean,
It make it pop, not gonna lie.
yeah, it's nice. It's nice. 12 by 12 tiles. Yeah, it's nice.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
this whole place smells like fabuloso.
Hey,
Hey, that smells delicious. That's my
Yeah.
childhood right there.
Yep.
yeah,
Oh.
it's funny because in our house, my wife, she'll use like Lysol, like mopping stuff, and I'll buy the purple fabuloso, and that's
Smells
what I
good.
use. And
Yeah.
our little one walks in, she goes, "Oh, I know you mopped," and she goes, "I love that smell." I was like, "That's right." Yeah.
Oh man.
So
Nice.
it's funny.
Nice. So then, what else about negotiations? So you're negotiating for all those other benefits or whatever, and then I don't know. I guess we don't have to get specific into what's going on with the contract negotiations, but I don't know. I kind of wanted to touch on so salary's the big one, right? And so we have officers that are, you have to pay your bills and take care of your family, so you're kind of concerned with how much you're getting paid, and they're looking at other places that are getting there's disproportionate salaries paid to different agencies
Yes.
or whatever. Like, I don't know if we want to kind of touch on that.
So I'll go ahead and I'll just
Yeah, you do
rattle
it.
off some.
Uh-oh, here comes some numbers.
facts.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm waiting.
So the average salary for a police officer is $52 an hour. Okay, which is 20%
Is that in the state of California?
in the state of California.
Okay.
And that's 20% higher than we currently have
For all police officer.
for the stepped out police officer. Not that's not
Not a
accounting
rank
for
above.
seniors, detectives, sergeants,
Topped out
and
slick
above.
sleeve.
Yeah, topped out slick sleeve is right now 41 and change.
And you said that's the average?
The average is 52.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the association is fully aware of the discrepancies in pay when
Obviously.
it comes to
Yes.
us and the state.
Well, in the state, but so I guess there's a problem I kind of wanted to touch on is that so we have our agency, which is the county seat, right? Or the city is the county seat, and then we have our agency, and then there's a county sheriff's department, and then there's a bunch of other smaller agencies that are all kind of satelliting around that are within
Yeah.
the county
Yes.
that are within like a reasonable drive distance, like
Yes.
where you wouldn't have to move to work at this other
You
place.
just change uniforms.
You just change outfits, change where you drive to
Yeah.
in the morning.
Yeah.
And where are we? And or maybe Nick knows the answer. I don't know.
What's the question? Where are we at?
Where are we at? And like, why? What would been like compared to other of our satellite within the county?
We used to lead pay in the outlying agencies, and we no longer do that. We're like maybe, and I think this is like probably middle of the pack.
Okay.
Yeah, we're the
And that's-
second largest in the county when it comes to numbers.
Size of the agency.
Size of agency.
Obviously, the county is bigger than the city, so they have more employees.
Yes. And
And we used to beat them.
we used to go toe to toe when it came to pay, and we even had the ability to sign some of those or have some of the deputies come over to the city.
That's true.
Some years ago, and that's not the
We
case
used to steal
anymore.
their people a lot.
They're good guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
the good ones.
So,
The ones who are motivated for monetary value.
Yeah.
It's not the case anymore.
And so now you have officers going to other agencies that are not the county. So that's alarming when you look at it, because now they're going to a smaller city that you would think that would not be paid more, but in actuality it is. So
Yeah, we have smaller agencies now
smaller
paying more.
agency. Mhm.
Yeah, so people are choosing. That's a retention issue, because if people want to leave for more money, then that's exactly what they're going to do. We're not going to be able to retain people.
Right.
And it's unfortunate, because I feel like we have a lot of good guys. We train our guys really
Excellent
well, and we're
officers.
losing them to smaller agencies that can't produce officers at the high quality that we do here.
Or they can't actually produce any at all.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, that's not a knock on them. So it's like we have our own academy, a training academy,
Yeah. Yes.
and we have a dedicated. Oh, there you go. You got the lieutenant here from training.
Yeah, like how much money is spent on producing a police officer from
Entry level.
application
from
day
application to off
By the time they get
probation.
off of, it's a couple $100,000.
couple $100,000,
Yeah.
and then
Average size of an academy is what?
Well, yeah, the one right now, there's currently 37
Yeah.
in there now.
it was 40 yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things happen.
Things happen. Yeah.
Stuff happens.
But it's a lot. It is a lot of money.
So we
to
can run
get
our own
somebody.
academy. Our county sheriff's department can run their own academy, and then all of these other it sounds like parasites at that point, because there's all these other surrounding agencies. They can't run their own academies. Sometimes they'll sponsor people to go through one of our academies, but for the most part, they're hiring people that have already been through an academy, and they're lateraling in, or they're coming in as an academy graduate or whatever, and that's what they're hiring. So they're not producing their own officers. And again, that's not a knock on them. It's just because if you have a smaller agency that's, say, 30 officers, they don't have enough manpower and funding to put on their own police academy.
Yeah.
Because it's expensive.
Yeah, and
So we're spending a ton of money to train officers to go work at other places.
yeah, and I mean, and I know that
Oh, he's not sure what hat to put on now. Look at him.
exactly. Well, because me and Max have had this conversation
Yeah.
before.
We need to keep,
so it's
I'm
kind of
just saying we
that.
just need
He's
to
like,
keep
do I
our
got my training
people.
hat on? Do I
Yeah.
got my former union president hat on? Shit.
No, but sometimes when officers go to smaller agencies,
Yeah.
and some of those smaller agencies do get paid more.
Yeah.
We have to remember that we also have almost 500 officers, and if that city were to try to get a budget of 500,000 or 500 officers,
Yeah.
it's not going. Smaller agencies you can't compare, because it's a completely different budget. It's a completely different amount of money. It's a completely different funding source that they would have,
Yeah.
and what the things that they
That's
spend
true.
on. So sometimes when going to smaller agencies is not a comparable. Now
From top down, I agree with you 100%.
And I get that. I would have pushed back just a little bit. I would say that if 10 years ago that our agency made more money than the smaller agency, that there's something has happened in that time frame to where then now there's a reason, and whatever the reason is.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like if I'm an officer, whatever the reason is, doesn't necessarily matter even. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
if and again, I'm not advocating for one position or the other, but it's like if I can just, drive basically the same distance from the house that I live in now to a different place and make 20% more, like that's a pretty good incentive to go do that instead.
Yeah.
And
then some of the things that you also have to look at when you do that is now you're driving. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
now you're driving over there. Whether it depends on the department. Do they have take home cars? Do they have is it going the? I'm not going to say more culture, but it's more is you're now going to be going to a new department where.
Yeah,
Nobody knows
there's
you.
obviously there's going to be differences
Yeah.
and all that.
And
And,
then
I was comparing on just one basic, like,
Yeah.
there's other factors that go into the decision making process.
Correct. Yeah, and I
But-
mean, if it's
But money is a
solely-
pretty strong factor.
Yeah, if it's solely
Yes.
money and that's what you want to do,
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks. I mean, but there's no way a department where that they're giving $95 an hour
Yeah.
is. Our city is never going to be able
$95
to
an hour.
do
You're
that.
talking about Santa Clara?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
But again, it's we're never going to get there. I mean, maybe in 100
Yeah.
years from now when we're,
No.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was speaking more towards like a satellite, and I say satellite parasite, within the same county, to where, like, say you live where Nick lives, and you can drive. There's another department that's probably equal drive distance from here, from Nick's house to this other department as is from Nick's house to our department.
Yeah.
And if
They're closer.
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
And so I'm
again,
not talking about driving 3 hours to commute to
Yeah.
work, or having to stay for a week in another town and then come back. Because a lot of people actually do that in different places, parts of the country.
And sometimes you gotta see that those departments, if they're getting paid more, and to fill their spots, are they filling spots that people are leaving there? Or are they filling spots because they're growing and they're adding spots?
Adding new ones,
So you also want to look at that too when you decide, or if anybody's out there that's deciding that they're going to want to do, is really look at how those numbers are coming up to are they recruiting? Well, what are you recruiting for? Are you recruiting for people who left your department? Then, okay, well, why? Are those people leaving for more money somewhere else? Or are they leaving because maybe just
There's an internal problem.
Exactly. So
I wonder how you could find that information out, for one, and then, like, if someone's really going to want to do that deep of a dive.
Well, I mean,
maybe.
you've got a association president who's most departments, even no matter how big or small.
I'll give an example to exactly what you just said. Torrance PD right now is offering like insane bonuses because they just had a large amount of their police force just leave, and that was based off of this pretty large investigation where a number of officers were fired, and then that kind of like changed their culture in there, and like, you know, obviously, what I'm assuming, and I don't really know because I'm not working there and I don't have, you know, access to the, you know, their investigations, but from what I've gathered and what I've heard on the internet is that after that investigation happened where a number of officers were fired, and it was like over like some group text kind of thing, people were saying a bunch of crazy shit, and after that they kind of like went really heavy-handed, like command staff, on like, you know, making sure that that does not occur again, because obviously no one wants, you know, a big investigation to hit their agency like that, so that makes sense. But at the same time, because of their heavy-handedness, it caused a large amount of people to leave, and now they're kind of like, they need people, so they're offering these huge bonuses. Like, I think the last I heard, and I'll correct myself if I get it wrong, but I think their bonuses were like in the 80K range for like new officers, just because they need them so bad right now. But that goes exactly how you said. Like, that's the reason why people left.
Yeah.
And the money's there because people left because they didn't want to be there anymore. So why would you, you know, the incentive is money, but, you know, it could be
You could be walking into something that's going to be not very desirable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
you don't know.
I just, you know, ultimately we want to keep and retain our people.
Yes.
However, if officers choose to leave, please do your
Homework
before, because depending on county, depending on area within the state, departments are different. Even though you're in California, you know, make sure that you understand what you're going to, because when you get there, yes, you may make a lot of money, but you're going to get there and you may not, but you might hate working there for whatever reason.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, you may get some people, as soon as you walk in there, why would you want to come here? You know, and I mean, there are cities that are up north that are making good money and more than us, but nobody wants to go there because they're not in a contract there, but they make more than us. And but just really look into what you're going to, unless it's just straight money. Then I mean, that's what's going to make you go and work. And if you're going to work just as hard, I mean, you can't do anything about that. But like, I mean, I would hate to lose officers here and them go somewhere and they hate it even more. That they made that move, and now they have to figure out, okay, you know, I uprooted my family, or I'm commuting, or now, you know, and but again, like I said, it's just if people are going to do it, they're going to do it, but we would like to keep them here and stay here and probably where they've grown up
Yeah. Well, the thing is I think of it as like a preventable problem, and I don't know if they're, I don't know the budget questions or whatever, but it seems like it's preventable, and that it would be in the best interest of the parties involved to try to prevent that, if that's the issue.
Absolutely.
I guess,
Absolutely.
kind of kick it back over to Max as what they're actively involved in. And I had a question. Do you guys do research like these topics, like, okay, what are the other agencies? I'm sure, what are these other agencies making, like percentage wise, and then using that as like kind of a contract negotiation tool when you go into these contract negotiations?
Yeah, so when we go into it, there's always 10 comparable cities of crime rate, officers, population of the city, and to make it comparable so they can take an actual snapshot of what that is comparable to us. Obviously, the way the city earns money is different. Like if we were to get compared to Pasadena or Fresno, like obviously we have a different infrastructure to earn our revenue, right? So that gets accounted for when it comes to making that contract counter. However,
So it's like cost of living?
cost of living,
Yeah.
that goes into it as well.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, because like there's certain, like if you are in the Bay Area, the cost of living is much higher than it is here.
Yes.
So it's not really fair. And if I were to steel man the city's case, it's not really fair to compare a salary of an officer at like San Francisco PD or whatever to an officer in the Central Valley.
Well, yeah, but not so much these days, because the housing costs that they try to that the other cities like in San Francisco, housing costs is expensive.
Yeah.
Well, it's not cheap in here in either.
Yeah.
I mean, with the housing market, it went up as well. So housing isn't cheap either.
No.
So that argument kind of falls flat with me when it comes to the reason why we don't pay that. I understand why we can't equal Santa Clara.
I would say
right?
it's not cheap here,
Right.
but it is absolutely ridiculous in some places.
Right. Yeah. So most of the issues that we have that the officers feel, because we did currently a poll, those numbers are always changing. So the number today won't be tomorrow, but the major discrepancy that why officers are leaving is going to be based off of pay. And yeah, it's one of those things that you're looking back and you're like, why is that agency making more than me when we're doing much more and is expected much more, and we have the goalpost is always moving. Once we reach this, it gets pushed back even further, is what the mentality of the officers are. Whether that's real or not, I mean, that's their perspective and their feelings on it. So it's going to make them feel like, well, I can make more if I'm going to deal with the same stuff. And that's what's been told to me, So I really feel like the officers do want to stay here. They do want to work here. It's just, they got to have a reason to stay. Yeah. And I think that's what they're waiting for the city to do, is make a proper offer for me to stay. And that's not unfair. That's not an unfair ask. So
now, if I were to push back to the other side against the city, I would say that there's an unfair advantage, that unfair sort of unofficial bargaining chip, is that we're different at our agency than most agencies in that, most of the people who work at our agency live in the city limits or within the orbit of the city. It's not really much of a commute. You don't have a lot of people commuting in an hour away to come to work. They all for the most part live here, and a large percent of those people are also from here.
Yes,
and so the incentive to leave or the incentive to stay goes far beyond just like pay, benefits, work conditions, and all that. It's like, well, if your parents live here and your kids are here and your cousins and your friends and your relatives are here, it's like that's a real strong incentive to kind of keeping you here. Has nothing to do with what you're being paid or what your work conditions are like. And so that's kind of like an unspoken sort of unfair advantage I think that the city has over these officers and these employees. Is just like, okay, you want to move away to some other place and you're not going to get to see your mom anymore,
when you put it that way,
you know what I mean? And obviously they're not saying that, but they have that advantage the other agencies don't have, because most agencies, like the cops commute in, they're not from there, they have no attachment to the place whatsoever, and it's like, okay, work here, I can work over there, or work over here, or wherever, because it's not like I'm not personally vested in this place, this location, like this city. You know what I mean?
I mean that's no different. There are officers that are here that work in LAPD that have never worked in Bakersfield. They moved here and they just commute. And I mean, it's kind of that, okay, well, how much are you spending on gas to go and do that?
Yeah, it's a pain.
And I mean, And granted, you have LA County where I just got to go over the hill and just go into Valencia.
And they're doing 12s too,
Yeah.
so they're
Yeah.
they'll stay away for 3 days and come back 4.
But there's a lot of things that there's a lot of battles that you have to, or hurdles that you have to do
Yeah.
before you make that decision to, hey, I'm going to leave.
But
You know?
I guess what I was trying to getting at is that the city and it kind of gets away with like, maybe this is just a perception of mine that a lot of people aren't going to leave unless it gets like really, really bad because they're so personally vested in the location.
Yes.
They have such deep roots and connections. I mean, my family's been here for like, 3 generations on one side and like 4 generations on the other side. It's like, I'm
You're here.
I'm a dirt Okie that's from this place,
Yeah.
and so that sort of like grounding or rooting force kind of keeps people and allows, again, this is just my perception, but kind of allows them to be like, yeah, well, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, I mean, it is true. We have a lot of homegrown officers here, and
But that's why these outside, so I was sort of getting at those satellite agencies. If I can drive just the other direction, the same distance, and still stay in the same county
Yeah.
and make 20% more, well, I get to.
That's easy.
I get to see grandma still, and
Yeah.
yeah,
that's
true.
kind of a danger that we're running into.
Yeah, and so hopefully we can get to a point where it's both sides of the table can come together and we can actually keep our officers here. So hopefully.
George Washington once said, "Stay strapped or get clapped." Probably. That's why I carry concealed. Do you carry concealed, or do you own a firearm for self-defense? If so, you should probably check out Firearms Legal Protection. FLP is a legal defense fund which will pay for your legal fees if you are involved in a self-defense incident. That includes your criminal defense and covers you if you are sued civilly. With plans starting as low as $10 a month for our listeners, go check them out. The link will be in our description.
I might cut this out, but I'm going to ask right now. What was the percentage of the survey of officers that are looking to at other agencies in general from that survey that we did last week? Do you have?
I have some numbers and that I actually gave to the negotiation side at that time. The numbers have grown since then, but at the time we had 258 officers and 11
Looking?
that was the total that took the poll.
Did the survey.
Yeah,
They did
and
this.
so 11 of them have been in backgrounds with other agencies. 58 had applied. That number has grown as well. The 11 has stayed the same. 120 are unsure if they're gonna leave.
But does that
For
mean
the
that
reason.
they're looking?
Yes, it means that what the question was, I can't remember it verbatim, but it was like,
Are you
actively looking? And it's a majority of them were unsure. Like what we would like to see in a great, contract year is everyone says, no, I'm not leaving. I'm happy here. Right.
Yeah.
That's not the case. It's really it flipped on its head and it's the
So
opposite.
11 that are currently in backgrounds, 58 that are in an application process.
Yes.
So that's 69
Yes.
out of 260?
Out of 260, 58 at that time.
258 that
that
took the survey.
Yeah. And out of that, and this is the number that came out of that.
So like a
jumped out at me.
third of the people
And what jumped out at me
are
was
either currently or currently in the hiring process somewhere else.
yes, is that the years of service of the people that took the poll was 208 were from 1 year to 15 years. So the majority, I mean, we're talking like only 50 something that were not Measure D or Pepra, were classics that were here.
They're fine. They're happy.
208 said that in a year I'm gonna be going, and that's those are the officers that are going to be here for a long time. 37 years, 35 years of Pepper, like you already spent so much money and as an officer to be trained up, that those are the ones you want to retain because it costs too much to start all over. And where are you going to grab those officers that are qualified? So I want to say I'm optimistic as far as some of them wanting to stay. I love the people that I work with, but I understand and the reasons why they got to take their chance or their decisions with their family, and that's more important.
And I think I have like a theory as well as why in the last, I don't know, month or so, why more officers are looking now It's because what's happened in the last month is that they've kind of put the hammer down on overtime.
Yeah.
And I think overtime was the one way that officers would supplement their income. Like, you know what? It doesn't matter if I'm like, paid a little bit less than other agencies. I can make it up in overtime.
Yeah.
And before it was kind of like plenty, right?
Yeah.
For the last 5 years, I feel like overtime's been plenty.
Yeah,
And then now,
I mean, COVID did a lot for that, for the overtime, and I do think that if you have been here longer than 10 years, you would say, you understand it the way it was then on how overtime was managed. It kind of seems like it's going similar to that. I think it's trying to get back to a for overtime as in a way it should be, not just
a sustainable
sustainable way of overtime, where it was a minimum staffing. Okay, well, you can have this many people off, and that's it. That's all that can take off.
Okay,
and so once you, yes, it was a hard line on it, and it could affect those that some people rely on the overtime to maintain the living that they want to
have because it was there.
However, because it was there. However, on some point, it's that your hourly wage is really what you should be going off of, and not overtime.
Are you trying to say that newer officers aren't financially responsible with their spending and
not saying that
buying houses outside their tax bracket and
They got to live within their means.
vehicles?
buying brand new Ram trucks?
Because I mean,
Got to get a grill. They just want to blow up and act like they don't know nobody.
I tend to say is at some point the overtime is going to have to stop, because the biggest thing is we were able to have that that cost savings because we didn't have the officers. We wanted to be at 512. Once you get to that number, something has to give. If you're at complement, overtime has to give, because there really shouldn't be a need for backfilling positions because we have all the officers that we need. Now, I do believe that if you have 4 people off and your shift, everybody knows who's off and who's not, and you do have people that call in sick. If you have a bunch of them, I mean, you have to backfill those people, because now you're 10 people down on a shift. Those are going to have to be overtime spots, because you've got to make sure that you're at your minimum staffing at least. So, I said, when we were here, or when we started, we had the officers that we needed for a certain time off. We were only able to take so many officers off for the shift, and then anything after that is we couldn't have the day off.
The overtime was less.
Or you did a shift swap, which I know that shift swaps was a thing of the past, and like for you probably never even heard of it.
Yeah, no, I've been here 5 years, and the shift swap thing's never been a thing as long as I've been here.
Because before COVID is when it was kind of, even a little bit before that, it was where it was implemented, and you can if there's 4 people off on your shift and that's your minimum staffing, you could take a day off if somebody comes and backfills for you and is working for you
straight time,
with no pay. Like, they're just working for you, and then you have to pay them back within, I believe it's 2 pay periods, where you're working for them for free, but and then they could take the day off. So that's how shift swaps work. But that was something of the past that it doesn't really get talked about anymore, because over time was
still
just
in place.
That system is still in place to where you can do it. It's even in our system to that is a shift swap. And it is something that you can work to where
Wife swap. No thanks. No thanks.
To where
if I'm working on my non-days off or on my RDOs, I want overtime.
Yeah. But what it is they're now giving, you can have somebody work 4 days for you.
Yeah.
And you have a full week off, and then 1 day within the next 2 periods, you have to work 8 straight days or whatever to pay back for them.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, it
seems confusing.
It's very confusing, but however, that's something that's even CDC has been doing for years. And it's they do it a different way.
Maybe that should get talked talked about in the next command staff meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll let you
Yeah,
bring
that's
that
something
up.
I'm like, I'm not really interested in doing that. It's like,
Well, and I
Shift
believe that was
swapping?
something
Sounds
the
like a-
association had brought up about shift swaps. Was
I think it was to alleviate the ability of
Yeah.
being told no.
being told no.
yeah.
And that's where it's gonna have to come back to is when people have the time off and you want to take the day off is, well, this is going to be the only way I'm going to be able to get it off is somebody swap, and I'll work this day for you because I have nothing going on that week. I'll work your day if
Yeah.
you work
Yeah.
my day.
I
That's
think-
that's kind of the way it is.
The point Nick was kind of trying to make, and I think what happened is that we had this Measure N passed in 2018, 2019, and that authorized the hiring of like 100 new officers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't remember what the complement was in the fours, and it was going to take us somewhere in the 500 range. And in that time, that 6-year time, we've been trying to hire all these new officers. But that window, we were authorized for 100 extra officers, and so there was like this unlimited, basically overtime to fill as if we had 100 more officers. So you could, if you wanted to, work overtime all the time because they had to basically take, say, 400 officers and pretend we had
They
500.
budgeted for the
Yeah.
extra
And they
100.
budgeted for all that extra time. And so while this unlimited gravy train overtime is happening, the salaries aren't really increasing at the rate that the outlying agency salaries are increasing. So their salaries are going up. Their baseline salaries are going up. Now, our officers are probably making more money on average through overtime. But then we get to now, like you said, a month ago, 2 months ago, they were like, okay, we've hit that mark now.
Yeah.
And now we're going to turn the
Right.
spigot off. And they turned the overtime spigot off, but the salary range has gone up, over the years slightly, but other places has gone up more. And now all of a sudden, with the overtime off and the lower
more
salaries,
People are
Parent.
seeing it now.
it's like, oh crap, like
Yeah.
I'm not making nearly as much as I used to be making. I don't have the same standard of living that I had. We're not able to go on the out of town trips that we
Yeah.
used to go on. I can't take the kids to Disneyland this year, that kind of stuff. And you're looking around and like, well, if I was working over there, you talk about working conditions and all that. Yeah. But, what is my off work time like here as opposed to if I was working somewhere else?
Yeah.
And that's like the big thing is that Ted, he came in here and was making the argument about like, doing it for the reasons, not necessarily the financial reasons, but for like the reasons of like wanting to make your department better. He's talking about promotions.
For the love of the game.
The love, do it for the love, not for the money. And I'm like, yeah, and I get that. And
Yeah.
that can't be a good bargaining position though, when you're trying to convince someone. It's like, like the example I use, it's like, hey, you normally would go to the beach for a week in the summer, but you're not going to do that now. You know what I mean? You would normally take the kids to Disneyland twice a year for their birthdays, but you're not going to do that now.
Now you got to go to a water park in Clovis. Yeah.
To the
Now you're
wolf-
taking them to the spray park.
to the
Yeah.
Wolf Lodge.
The local, yeah.
That's actually expensive.
But what I mean is, like,
Yeah,
if
it's
that's
very
the decision that I make, and I have to decide between, like, oh, you know what, I'm just going to do it for the good of the department, and then turn around and like say, sorry, honey, like, no, we're not doing that. I know you really wanted to go to the beach this year, but we're not going to do that because,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm such a good person,
Yeah.
and I'm doing such a good job for my agency.
Doing it for the
It's
love
like-
of the game.
You know what I mean? For the love. I find that a hard argument to make.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
get promoted to lieutenant.
That's
and
what,
then,
well, that was the context that we were using.
Yeah.
We were talking about how he took a huge pay cut when he went from sergeant to lieutenant.
yeah.
I told him I just don't trust lieutenants in general because like you being a sergeant is really fun and you make more money doing it than being a lieutenant is not fun and you make less money. And I'm like, if you make that decision purposely, I don't trust your judgment.
It's for the power.
I'm like,
Yeah. Well, he's actually doing it for the love of the game.
yeah, he's doing it for the love of
Yeah,
the game.
so
yeah.
he can make the argument
Okay.
and stand on
I just
business.
don't trust his judgment. I mean, that's all I'm saying.
Good initiative. That just, yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Did you have
Well,
any more questions for the union side?
I mean,
That sounds like a yes.
oh shit. Let me see. What else? Oh, I forgot what I was gonna say.
We could talk about endorsements if you'd like.
We can talk about. We did talk about like the volunteering, like how it's volunteering and how you got that balance. Between life
with
balance because I can
bored
definitely
and not bored. I mean,
uh,
you've been to a few meetings, like like somewhat of the intricacies of what goes on, other than good food, and
Yeah.
it's just it can get convoluted. It can be flat sometimes, just what's going on that month. But as of recently, it's been pretty good. But just the time and effort that it takes just to do this volunteer position.
Because most associations within our size have full-time presidents, so which that is their full-time job. And
who pays them?
So in
Through the
some
dues?
cities, the city it'll be part of the MOU, the
okay.
contract. Most departments or cities that do have that, they're at complement or over complement, so they can have that one officer or whatever rank that they are off the streets and doing the association stuff. A lot of departments take a very small percentage of whether it's sick time or vacation time because they're so large. It would suck to do it for a small agency because you'd take all of it for the whole year, but for a very large agency, it's point something per check.
Vacation.
Vacation. I think some do sick time agencies. When you're talking about a
So
3,000
the
agency,
officer donates a percentage of their
Yes.
sick time to pay the salary of the president?
yes,
I got you.
Like
So-
a 0.5 of an hour. or
yeah,
like,
and I
half
think
an
even
hour.
for this, for our size, I think it was 0.17 per check. And at the end of the year, I think it was 6 hours total. At once by the time you get to that point, if you add it all up, you're talking some agencies that have 3,000-4,000 people, and that's
I'd do that.
nothing. But when you do that, some people may not want to be part of the board anymore, or I'm sorry, not the board, but a part of the association. They're like, I'm not going to give any money or my time for that, so they can come off. All they want.
Yeah.
And then that number will slightly grow as depending on how many people are there. But they have the opportunity to do a lot more within the association while being full release. Because then you can expect more.
Yes.
This is
Now,
your job
as cops in general, we expect more anyways.
Yeah.
But you have to remember that there's that balance between our job, our family, and then now a volunteer position where 500 people want you doing, this much stuff.
Yeah.
So, I know that most of you have seen emails that I've sent. It's 11 o'clock at night, midnight, when I was doing association stuff. Because when I got home, my wife didn't want me on. I did it anyways, but she didn't want me on the computer. She didn't want me on the phone. She didn't want me doing association work when I was at home with her and the kids. And so I would wait until they're, put in bed and stuff. And then I'll jump on the computer and start sending out emails. So something eventually has to give, whether it's family, work, or association. And in my instance, it was family a lot. And because even with work, I kind of sometimes, and I know it's wrong, but I hold work, and this is where you come. I'm here for I held work, and I do hold work higher than family, and I know I shouldn't, but that's just how I've always been. So, and we've gone out before, and because
I know what he's going to refer to. And
but we go out, with our wives, and he gets on the phone, and then I get on the phone because I am still part of our state association as our legal defense. I'm our vice chair for our legal defense fund, and so we're constantly still on the phone, and it pulls away, and we always kind of.
I just gotta take this call real quick.
Yeah, and I always tell my wife, I was like, "See, I don't have to do that anymore." She's like, "You still do it, but you're doing it with something else now." So it's a lot of balance, and we try to do, and I know Max does it, and the board members do it. That it's a lot of extra work that we do for free.
Yeah.
For the love of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
And really,
and that is really what it is. It's for the love of trying to make the association and do things for the members that were better from the previous people. You know, like I said before the show, I think it was, is, you know, I was a plain shirt guy, and you know, he's the
fancy
loud shirt guy.
Yeah.
You know, and but that's, you know,
I like his
that
shirt
is-
better than yours.
Well, no, and
I'll talk about Max. I'll talk about
however,
Max's shirt.
I can wear my shirt, and you can't wear that. But it's just, that's just the way, you know, to make it better.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people do like Max's attire and the shirts. It's always trying to make it better, no matter who's on the board, who's the president, who's the vice president. As long as you
Improve.
make it better,
Yeah.
that's all that matters. And you're not going to please everyone. You have 500 A personalities that you're not going to make everybody happy, whether it's wages, whether it's outcomes of disciplines, whether it is endorsements, which is a big thing. I mean, so that is just one of the things that we have to make sure that we're doing. And ultimately, we do it for the betterment of the association. And we're not always going to be right. You know, but if we're not right, or we make a mistake, or we make the wrong endorsement, or what, we have to stand by it, because we made those decisions. So I don't know if you got...
No, that's what it is. And exactly how everything that I've come to know in this department is, you know, not everything's going to be right. Not everything's going to be good. But you try to make the best of it, right? So I feel, as the association side, it is... The way I take it on is, I'm there because I have the ability to make it better. And whatever ability that comes by, that's what I'm going to take. As long as I can be agreeable to some other things, and we can all have that understanding, like not everything's going to be perfect, right? But the things that we can make the change, that I'm going to try my hardest to make that change. Whether it comes from the hats that we got, but the shirts that we have, or just being there and making that, oh, somebody calls you at 10 o'clock at night because it's their shift, that's when they're on, I'm taking that call. You know what I'm saying? And it's because it was important to them, and that was the reason why I was in this position. So, so if anybody's listening and they call and I don't answer, send me a text, because I'm probably asleep.
Yeah.
But if it's not that, then I'll answer.
Well, if they ain't answering your phone call, you can answer your text.
No, but that way I can get back to them, like what the reason was, you know. So, but yeah, I love it, and I'm sure during his time he loved it, and it was just about just different things that we wanted to bring to it. So, you know, his big thing was golf back in the day. Now we're going on fishing trips, and whoever takes on from me is probably going to want to do something totally different. But as long as everybody can come together outside of work, that's mainly what we shoot for. And whatever we can do to make work better is top priority. So
Nice.
Yeah. If you ever want to do any hunting trips, let me know.
That would...
if you know anybody, somebody brought it up as far as the dove
When I
hunting.
was in digital forensics, the homicide
How about some bear hunting?
did they did dove hunting or phaseant hunting
Pheasant. Nice.
as a unit. And that was
Quails,
pretty
yeah.
cool.
I got a good
I
pheasant
heard it was
story.
a peasant hunting.
I probably
No,
was.
no.
I don't know. It probably was.
Great.
Oh,
Right on. All right. Well, Balti, Max, thank you guys for coming out and talking to us.
No, thank you. Thank you. It was great.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and stay frosty.